In this video, we'll be discussing the process of action potentials. This video was created by myself, Claudia Jaros, and it was made for PS263 Biopsychology at Wilfrid Laurier University. To start off our discussion on action potentials, we're first going to discuss the resting potential of a cell. The resting potential is what the cell is at when there is no action potential present. It is the difference in charges across the cell membrane. During the resting potential, the inside of the cell is always more negative compared to the outside of the cell, and the inside of the cell starts off at a negative 70 millivolts. The sodium ions are found in high concentration outside of the cell, while the potassium ions are found in high concentration inside of the cell. Now we are going to begin our discussion on the three stages of a typical action potential. Those three stages consist of depolarization, repolarization, and hyperpolarization. To begin, we're going to look at the first phase of the action potential, also called the depolarization phase. In this phase, sodium channels found in the sodium-potassium pump open, allowing the sodium ions found on the outside of the cell to now flow through to the inside of the cell. The movement of the sodium ions to the center of the cell causes the cell to depolarize to approximately plus 30 millivolts. In this phase, the depolarization of the cell must reach the threshold in order to create an action potential. As it was just stated, in order for an action potential to occur, the threshold of depolarization must be reached. This threshold is set at negative 55 millivolts, and this applies to the all or none law. The all or none law states that the amplitude and velocity of an action potential are independent of the intensity of the stimulus that initiated it, provided that the stimulus reaches the threshold. The second phase of an action potential is the repolarization phase, and in this phase, the potassium channels in the sodium-potassium pump open up, therefore letting the potassium inside the cell move to the outside of the cell, slowly lowering the membrane voltage back down to a negative number. As the potassium channels remain open, the membrane begins to reach a value of negative 90, exceeding the resting potential value of negative 70. This is called the hyperpolarization phase. This phase is important in that any new stimulus is prevented from creating an action potential, discussed next on refractory period. The final concept that will be discussed is the refractory period. The refractory period splits off into two separate parts. You have the absolute refractory period and the relative refractory period. In the absolute refractory period, the sodium gates are inactive, therefore no action potential can occur no matter how strong the stimulus. The second part is the relative refractory period. In the relative refractory period, sodium channels slowly begin to reactivate. Therefore, with a strong enough stimulus, an action potential may occur. Just wanted to thank everyone for watching my video on action potentials, and hopefully it broke things down simply enough that it was easy to understand. Thank you.
Created using Powtoon.